Just 1 minute ago, the unthinkable happened. The Palace Council, long regarded as a symbol of unity and tradition, cast a vote that could redefine the monarchy's future. Camilla, once seen as unshakable, suddenly found herself at the center of the most controversial decision in decades. The vote was more than symbolic, it was a statement, and its consequences are unfolding at dizzying speed. Inside the palace, the decision landed like a thunderclap. Phones buzzed in corridors usually governed by silence. Faces hardened, and long-standing alliances felt suddenly fragile. This was not a routine procedural move, but the council drawing a line that placed Camilla directly on the wrong side of royal survival. For years, the council had wielded its power through restraint, rarely asserting itself so openly, which made this moment all the more shocking. Insiders described the atmosphere as tense, almost surreal, as the weight of the decision sank in. A role once assumed permanent now hung by a thread. Almost immediately, fallout began. Courtiers scrambled to control the narrative, but it was slipping fast. The message was unmistakable: Camilla's position within the crown was no longer secure. Every appearance, privilege, and influence she once held was suddenly under scrutiny, and this time, there would be no quiet reversal. Then came the whispers. A deliberate, precise leak had surfaced just moments before the vote, not a rumor from outside, but insider information, signaling that the palace's inner workings were shifting in ways few could have anticipated. Within the palace walls, the timing of events was no accident. Someone wanted the council pressured, the stakes raised, and Camilla weakened before a single hand was lifted. Behind closed doors, names were quietly exchanged. Princess and Prince William, two figures rarely aligned publicly, yet reportedly united in private concern. Whispers suggest both had spent days speaking individually with council members, framing the vote not as betrayal, but as preservation of credibility, stability, and the crown itself. Camilla was not present during deliberations, though her location was known to a select few. She was informed the vote was happening, but not how it would end. That absence now feels symbolic, a queen excluded from the very room deciding her fate. When the count was complete, one detail stood out. While loyalty still existed, and some resistance was voiced, the majority spoke louder than allegiance, sending a message that could not be ignored and a warning that could not be undone. To understand this breaking point, one must look at tensions simmering long before the council's decisive vote. Camilla's growing influence had sparked internal resentment, and whispers of dissatisfaction were not new. But now, something had shifted. Subtle warning signs had emerged. Tight smiles at royal events, absent family members during engagements, private meetings that excluded her entirely. At the heart of it was a quiet build-up of discontent among senior royals. While King Charles elevated Camilla's presence, others questioned whether she truly embodied the future of the monarchy. Princess Anne, long regarded as the steel backbone of the crown, had grown increasingly disapproving not of Camilla personally, but of her public behavior, expanding decision-making role, and perceived erosion of royal boundaries. Her discontent was strategic and measured, but spreading. Meanwhile, William began to pull back, fewer joint engagements, less time in shared quarters, more closed-door meetings with trusted advisors, not rebellion, but preparations signaling an air of repositioning for something seismic. Council members murmured behind velvet curtains. Not all were royal blood, but all were bound by duty. Camilla's recent actions, her involvement in communications, rumored directives on press releases, and interventions in ceremonial planning raised quiet alarms, seen as overreach. Then came the leak, a confidential memo suggesting she had overridden protocol to influence a scheduled event meant to honor the late Queen's legacy. The document never made headlines, but within the council, it was all the evidence needed that boundaries had been crossed. Outside the palace gates, public unrest boiled. Media commentary grew sharper, approval ratings dipped with each appearance, and aides reported inboxes overflowing with complaints and criticisms. The pressure was undeniable, and action, they concluded, was necessary to preserve what remained of the monarchy's credibility. These moments were not isolated, they were pieces of a larger, unfolding reckoning that had been quietly building for years. The growing cracks within the monarchy culminated in a private confrontation behind closed doors, a turning point that set the stage for the vote that stunned the world. In a tense, emotionally charged meeting, Princess Anne made it clear that the crown's future could not be held hostage by Camilla's controversies. Eyewitnesses say her voice trembled not from fear, but from fury, and what she reportedly said left even King Charles speechless. for years and had remained silent as palace dynamics shifted. But with the vote looming and public scrutiny mounting, she stepped into the fire with purpose. This was no mere conversation. It was an ultimatum, leaving no room for compromise. At Clarence House, she reportedly told Charles in unflinching terms that the monarchy's reputation was bleeding and Camilla was at the center of it. "She may be your wife, but she's not our queen." Anne's threat was unprecedented. She was prepared to resign her royal duties entirely if Camilla retained privileges and influence she deemed unacceptable. Framing her ultimatum as a matter of institutional integrity rather than emotion, and cited mounting public disapproval, declining confidence ratings, and internal unrest within the council, stressing the cost of keeping Camilla front and center. She was not alone. Other royals quietly aligned with her stance, including the Duke of Edinburgh and Prince Edward, who reportedly expressed concerns about Camilla's conduct. Word of Anne's ultimatum travelled fast, and by evening, Camilla had retreated to her private quarters, aware her influence was slipping and that the rebellion had begun. Meanwhile, Prince William, long publicly silent, had been quietly gathering evidence, meticulously compiling a dossier documenting every breach of protocol, hidden conflict, and alleged manipulation orchestrated by Camilla. Months of careful observation revealed a pattern of subtle interference escalating into deliberate control, altering guest lists, redirecting press attention, and quietly shaping public narratives, all operating just beneath the surface of official protocol. What emerged in William's dossier was not isolated incidents, but a calculated effort to influence the royal image from behind the curtain, an effort that would soon play a decisive role in the council's historic vote. The dossier painted Camilla in a more favorable light publicly, often at the expense of other family members, and several incidents aligned with moments of internal tension, particularly involving Catherine. Long-rumoured friction between Camilla and Catherine was laid bare, with private clashes documented, some over public appearances, others over Camilla's perceived authority in family matters. One confrontation, reportedly so intense it required mediation by palace aides, had been redacted from official records, but William ensured it was restored in full. Even more concerning were hidden communications, showing Camilla's secret outreach to external advisors with no official ties to the monarchy, some connected to media, others to political circles, suggesting she was quietly building a power base. Perhaps most damning were claims that she interfered with King Charles's public remarks. Statements prepared by royal advisors were allegedly revised or delayed at her insistence, including one speech praising Catherine's charity work, reportedly watered down just hours before release for strategic positioning. Days before the council gathered, William delivered the dossier in private to senior members. No speech, no warning, simply evidence. A final push to make them understand what was truly at stake. Not just the crown's image, but its foundation. As tensions mounted inside the palace, the media storm outside was poised to erupt. Hours before the vote, a classified royal document appeared in the press. The leak was explosive, insiders claim, and it did not come from an outsider. From Camilla's own circle, someone reportedly attempted to sway the council by leaking sensitive intel, but the plan backfired spectacularly. The leaked document was a draft statement never intended for public eyes, boldly referring to Camilla not as queen consort, but as queen in full, a phrase loaded with symbolic power, suggesting a permanent elevation beyond even what the late queen had sanctioned. Many saw it not as tradition, but as a quiet power grab. The media pounced within minutes, igniting headlines that painted Camilla as a power-hungry figure orchestrating a silent takeover. Overnight, public sentiment turned volatile. Palace switchboards were overwhelmed, staffers faced a storm of angry calls, and aides struggled to contain the narrative. But the damage had already spread like wildfire. Behind closed doors, chaos erupted. Sources confirmed that Princess Anne, Prince William, and Prince Edward convened an emergency meeting mere hours after the leak to discuss not only damage control, but also the urgent need to push the vote forward. Rumors suggested the leak originated from Camilla's own team, possibly her private secretary, someone entrusted with her schedule, statements, and secrets. The gamble had failed. Instead of intimidating the council, it exposed their deepest fears of Camilla overstepping her appointed role. The optics were damning, the intention toxic, and the fallout forced the council's hand. The vote, originally scheduled for the end of the week, was moved up by 48 hours. There would be no time for Camilla to campaign, no time to shift narratives. When the council finally gathered, the historic chamber steeped in centuries of monarchy witnessed an unprecedented moment. Security was tightened, devices confiscated, and over the next 47 minutes, history was rewritten. Voices rose one by one, some for loyalty, others for legacy. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Seasoned stewards of the crown, measured and steeped in protocol, betrayed their unease. Members spoke in clear, concise statements. Camilla's name was not merely procedural, it was a dividing line. To some, she was a stabilizing presence during Charles's reign, a partner in his path to the throne. To others, she symbolized ambition masked as duty, overreach, and a threat to tradition. Even allies of the king were forced to reconsider her role as the vote progressed, each word shaping a verdict that would reverberate through the monarchy for years to come. As the vote concluded, even King Charles's closest allies, men and women who had stood by him since the Queen's passing, suddenly hesitated. Some altered their tone, others their votes, driven not by betrayal, but by fear. Fear that clinging to Camilla's vision of power would drag the monarchy further into the storm. Then came the voices of the past, the Queen's former advisors, invited as honorary observers. Their words shook even the most seasoned council members. One reportedly said, "To preserve the future, we must not rewrite the past," a line later credited as the final blow to Camilla's standing. The vote itself was clinical. Hands raised, names called, decisions made. The tally was not a landslide, but it was sufficient a narrow yet firm majority against Camilla, maintaining a central role in the crown. Recorded, signed, and sealed, the decision carried gravity rather than fanfare. Silence followed, not from shock, but from the realization that the monarchy had crossed a threshold it could never return from. King Charles, at the center of it all, faced the most personal reckoning of his reign. For a monarch who had once defied the world to stand by Camilla, the outcome cut deeper than any prior royal crisis. Observers say he appeared broken, not only as a king, but as a husband. Yet duty demanded he choose between love and legacy. Rising without a word, Charles left the council chamber, silent, leaving behind a room heavy with consequence. Behind closed doors, he struggled to steady himself, years of sacrifice and compromise collapsing in an instant. His instructions to aides oscillated between defending Camilla and accepting the inevitability of the decision, the crown demanding obedience over desire. Camilla, meanwhile, did not answer his calls, retreating into her own silence, whether out of anger, shock, or strategy. The distance between them widened with each unanswered message. Memories resurfaced, old wounds reopened, and the cost of choosing love over approval now threatened the very institution he led. Royal aides moved swiftly, crisis planning began, public messaging was revised, and scenarios were mapped with brutal efficiency. The question was no longer if change was coming, but how it would be managed, and whether the crown could survive the fracture at its heart. Charles was no longer merely managing a crisis, he was living inside it, each decision carrying irreversible weight. Protecting Camilla could fracture the crown. Abandoning her could shatter what remained of his private world. In the impossible space between duty and devotion, the king stood utterly alone. But while Charles wrestled with loss of control, Camilla was preparing for war. Underestimated before, she had already activated a response plan, not only to protect herself, but to expose those she believed orchestrated her downfall, beginning with the family member whose betrayal had cut the deepest. In the immediate aftermath of the council vote, she vanished from public view, retreating to a private royal estate with only her most trusted staff. What appeared as silence was actually a calculated regrouping, a counteroffensive taking shape behind closed doors, strategic, swift, and precise. One of her first moves was a media push, briefing loyal columnists with a narrative portraying her as the victim of a coordinated smear campaign punished for standing firm and protecting the king. Carefully phrased quotes began appearing in sympathetic outlets, designed not to attack, but to sow doubt about the legitimacy of the council's vote. The real storm, however, was yet to come. Sources say Camilla had begun drafting a public statement to defy the decision, entirely not with rage, but with resolve, addressing the nation directly, bypassing traditional palace channels. Privately, she made it clear that if pushed out, she would not go quietly. Leaked internal memos indicated she was prepared to release potentially explosive details about tensions within the royal family, long-buried scandals, and private rivalries now threatening the monarchy. Her suspected targets: Princess Anne, who had confronted Charles directly, and Prince William, whose betrayal she felt was both political and personal. Meanwhile, outside the palace, her allies mobilized, using business connections, media influence, and social networks to lobby for her reinstatement, even threatening to withdraw support from royal charities. The pressure was no longer confined to the palace, it was squeezing the monarchy from all sides, setting the stage for a new, unpredictable chapter in the royal power struggle. Just as Camilla prepared to go public with her wrath, an unexpected voice entered the chaos, tilting the balance: Princess Catherine. She had remained silent through the storm, but now she spoke not in anger, but in measured strength, and her words resonated far beyond the palace walls. Delivered via a simple formal release from Kensington Palace, with no press conference or theatrics, her statement was precise, deeply felt, and quietly powerful. At a time when accusations and blame ran high, Catherine's tone was calm, clear, and unwavering. She spoke of unity, healing, and the monarchy's duty to lead not only with tradition, but with transparency. Without naming names, she acknowledged the internal pain plaguing the institution, writing that the strength of the crown is not measured by one title, but by the trust of the people who look to it for steadiness in uncertain times. The subtle phrase, "those who divide from within," echoed, like a warning bell, a reminder that the greatest threats to the monarchy often come from inside, from those prioritizing ambition over service. Though Camilla was never mentioned, the implication was unmistakable. Royal commentators reacted immediately, social media erupted in praise, headlines called it Catherine's most consequential intervention yet, and polling shifted overnight. For the first time in weeks, clarity returned, a future guided not by chaos or retaliation, but by composure and conviction. Catherine had not taken sides, she had taken the side of the throne, cementing herself as the monarchy's moral center. Behind palace doors, her words triggered quiet recalibrations, staffers aligned with her vision, departments restructured, public engagements reprioritized, and messaging strategies rewritten. The tone from the palace shifted from defense to renewal. This was no mere statement, it was a transition, signaling the rise of a new kind of leadership, one that honored tradition without being constrained by it. For a public weary of scandal and division, Catherine's voice was more than welcome, it was necessary. And as the monarchy navigates uncertain waters, with Camilla sidelined and Charles adrift, one question now echoes louder than ever: what happens next?